The next thing I want to get in place is our main character. There are some other elements that we're going to be putting in the background and our typography, but first we have to get our main character in there and see how we're going to position him and how much room we have left. So open up tray.tiff. This is our main character, and we're going to create a path around him in order to make a selection so that we can knock out the background. So first of all, I want to lighten the background so I can see what the detail is down here on his shorts, because I think showing that he's in boxing shorts will help tell the story. There's some other issues here. We're going to have to get rid of this string. This other guy's hand is over the top of his arm, so we're going to have to do some retouching there. We have the issue with the hair. We want to keep it looking very wet and natural, like perspiration. So we've got quite a few things to do here. So let's first of all start by renaming the layer. So let's add a levels. This will be just temporary, and we will remove it later. I want to be able to see the detail around the bottom of the image, down here where his legs are. Okay, now I'm going to use my pen tool and create a path all the way around his body. Where there is tape and lots of wrinkles, I need more points to create the detail. Where we have a smooth surface, I'll have fewer points. If I want to change direction, remember I have to hold down the Option key. If I just go like right here, I get this weird loop. So hold down the Option to bring in that handle, and then just pull up slightly to change directions. Spacebar. The hair we'll do as best we can with the pen tool, and then we'll look at some other ways to try to make it look more natural. Hair like this is pretty tough, particularly when the background is very close in value to the hair. If there was a significant difference in value, we could easily pull a channel mask or use a quick selection tool. There's a lot of things you can do if there's a nice separation. But if there's not a good separation as far as value goes, it becomes a little bit more challenging. Here where the other guy's hand crosses his arm, we're going to have to kind of guess what the anatomy should look like. So something like this, I think. And we can come in, we're going to be using a layer mask to knock out the background, so if it doesn't look quite right, we can easily go back and modify it. A little hard to tell, but I think something like that. I'll make a selection, add the layer mask. Okay, now I need to get inside these areas between the body and the arm. Come in here. Okay, now before I discard the levels adjustment layer, I think I will try to pull a channel mask and see if I can refine his hair. So temporarily, I'm going to turn off the layer mask for Trey by holding down the Shift key and clicking on the layer mask. And then I want to look at each of the individual channels to see which one has the most contrast between his hair and the background. I think that the red channel is going to give me the best chance of getting some separation there. So I'm going to copy that channel, apply levels, and really crank up the contrast. See if I can get a stencil for that hair. All right, I think I'll try that. This looks pretty good here, and I got some wisps here that I like and some little hair flying away here that I like. This is problematic and this is problematic, so those will have to be cleaned up by hand probably. So I'm going to say OK to this. Go ahead, Command click on the thumbnail to load it as a selection. Return to the RGB channel and turn on my mask again. Now I'm going to have to inverse the mask, so Command Shift I, and then I'm going to use a paintbrush, and in this case I'm going to use white and try to reveal this area in here. So I'm just clicking. You can press Command H to hide the marching ants. It's still selected, you just don't see them. So that feels better right there. Let's see if I can get some of this wispiness in there. Okay, that's good. Here, and then I'll make my brush a little smaller and see if I can get some in here. Okay, so that's better than it was by a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and go with that. Now I can get rid of this adjustment layer. So the first thing I want to do is retouch his arm right here. So I'm going to do that on a separate paint layer. This one, I will have to use it as a clipping mask. Say OK. And then I'm going to paint by sampling real frequently, very nearby. Now I have to make sure I deselect. I still have a selection going, so if I do Command H, you're going to see the selection is still there. So I need to deselect, Command D, and now I can retouch on this separate layer. Make my brush a little smaller. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I can put a mask on this and using a very low flow, fade this out a little bit with black. All right, now we do need to add noise to this layer to make it look like the rest of the image, to have the same sort of pixelated quality as the rest of the image, the same grain. So I'm going to add another layer, and this one will be grain or noise. We do have to use the previous layer as a clipping mask, and then change the blend mode to overlay, and fill with overlay neutral color, 50% gray, say OK. And it's going to look like this. Now we're going to add the grain. So I'm going to filter, noise, add noise. And might be a bit much. Maybe I'll reduce that a little bit. Down about 14. Say OK. So I'm going to Command click on the thumbnail of my paint layer. That loads that as a selection, and then I can add a mask to my grain layer. Now I can see that the grain looks a little small relative to the grain of the rest of the image. So I want to increase the grain, but I do not want to increase the size of the mask. So I'm going to unlink them temporarily by clicking the chain, click back on the grain layer itself, Command T, to invoke the transform command, and I'll select either the width or the height, make sure that the chain is linked, and then press my my up arrows. And that looks a little bit better. So I've gone up about 126%. And I will click the check mark to perform that transformation. Now I'm going to add a little bit of a blur. That looks pretty good. I'll reduce the opacity slightly. And now we've got pretty good fake there. Now if I turn this on and off, it's not bad. Okay. Let's save tray. And let's put all of the tray's elements into a single group. So I'll select them all, press Command G, and rename this tray. All right, now I want to move tray into my final challenge document. But first, I want to open up this group and make sure I relink the grain layer and its mask. If not, and I scale tray later on in the other document, this will cause me problems. So always make sure that you relink your layer and its layer mask before you do anything else. All right, let's bring him over into the final challenge document. And let's do a little housekeeping. I'm going to take desert and all of the elements in the background, put them into a single group, which I will name background. We can actually get rid of this background layer. We don't need it anymore. And I'll save my document. Okay, now I want to bring in my final JPEG document to use it as a reference while I'm creating this tutorial. So here's my final JPEG. I'll bring this into the final challenge PSD and get it down in place. And I want it to be below tray because I want to reference tray. So I'm going to then click on tray and scale this up. Now normally I don't like to scale up Photoshop images, but in this case I don't really have a choice. This is the image I've got and it really needs to be bigger. Now if we stay around 110%, we should be fine, and I'm right at around 110%.